Hello, and welcome to week number 5 of Intro to Theater Online. I am, as always, your professor, Andrew Friedman. I hope that you're all doing well and enjoying the course. I've enjoyed reading your assignments and discussion posts thus far, so keep up the good work. For this week, we will be turning our attention to both actors and directors. For this week, you will be reading chapters 6 on directors and 9 on actors. In addition to that, you will be taking quiz number 3, and I ask that you begin your acting assignment. The acting assignment is in next week's folder. It's not due until the end of that next week, so that's in folder number 6, but it's worth clicking on it and taking a look. So that the workload is not too heavy next week, but also so you have some ideas about what you might want to be thinking about acting and directing. So this week, we'll be speaking about and reading about acting and directing. Now, I assume most of us have a pretty clear idea of what an actor does. She or he is oftentimes the person responsible for performing a text in a play. But as you'll find out when you read the chapter on acting, there are many different ways and styles in which actors contribute. If you think about what is probably your extensive knowledge of television and film, you are probably familiar with different styles of performing. You are aware of comedic actors. You are aware of dramatic actors. In addition to people being skilled at one type of performance or another, oftentimes actors contribute to the performance in ways that we may not be aware of. For instance, oftentimes performers may contribute text or material to the performance, or they might contribute ideas. In the end, what we see is that person performing on the stage for us, but oftentimes in the process of rehearsing for a production, they are contributing in many ways in addition to their actual performance. So as you read this and think about performers, I would like you to try and do a little mental check of some of the performers that you know best from television or movies or what have you. And think about the range of the types of performances you're familiar with. And also keep in mind, what are the styles of performance you're most interested in or most enjoy? The second figure that we'll be thinking about this week is the director. One important thing to keep in mind is that the director is oftentimes thought, in our contemporary moment, as the chief collaborative artist. The director is a person who is in charge of supervising the entire production. They are in charge of organizing the production itself, overseeing the actors, but in addition to that, is oftentimes in charge of organizing designers, lighting designers, sound designers, costume designers, set designers, and is responsible for making sure that the production is on track and complete from the process of inception, the original idea, all the way to the end of, say, opening night. In addition to that, directors oftentimes will work with the playwright, if the playwright is alive, and discuss the concepts of the play or come up with an idea through which they can organize this whole production. So one way to think about what the director does is they are the kind of central star or guiding star around which all of the other artists working on a theater production are in concert with, right? They are the organizing principle. Now, directors, as you'll see in the chapter, work in very different ways. There are some directors that are incredibly controlling, that have a clear idea of how everything is going to go. There are other directors that are interested in what might be called a devised process, which means that all of the artists involved come and contribute, and they collectively build what the idea of the show will be together. They devise it. And there's everything in between those two poles. So as we've seen, there's great variety in playwrights. There's an equal amount of variety in the types of actors and directors that work in the theater. The third figure that will come up in these chapters, and one that we might be a little less familiar with, is the figure of the producer. The producer's job is primarily to organize and gather money. The producer is finding the money. Now, depending on the scale of the production, whether this is a huge musical on Broadway or a little tiny play being performed in someone's basement, will determine the necessity and the role of the producer oftentimes. If we're talking about a production that costs millions and millions of dollars, the producer will have a much tougher job on their hands. That said, just as actors, directors, and playwrights come in all different stripes, so too do producers. Some producers are exclusively responsible for organizing the money and allotting that money to the director so they can complete the work, whereas others oftentimes will have a more heavy hand or more involvement in the actual artistic choices being made in the production. For example, a producer may contribute to decisions about casting, directing choices, design choices. And some of that influence might be saying, I'm sorry, you really want a volcano on stage. We don't have that money in the budget. All the way down to, I think this would look more interesting if it were done another way. So I think one of the key elements to think about when we're reading about these figures is their responsibilities and their contributions are as various as the different types of theater art that get made. So I hope that you enjoy the chapter. I encourage you to take a look, if not begin work, on your acting assignment in chapter 6. And I hope that you have a lovely week, and I'll see you again next week. So long.